The fall of Imperial Russia with the Russian Revolution in 1917 is closely associated with a man named Grigory Rasputin. Rasputin was a spiritual guru, a mystic, a monk, and a healer. He wielded considerable influence over the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II, and his wife, Alexandra. Rasputin got close to the king and queen after he claimed to have miraculously cured their son of hemophilia. His influence on the Russian Empire was so huge that whenever the king went out of St. Petersburg, he would hand over the reins of power to Rasputin. Eventually, in December of 1916, Rasputin was shot dead by a group of noblemen. 3 months later, the Russian Revolution began, bringing an end to 200 years of Imperial Russia. Rasputin's story has been popularized by the Boney M song Rasputin. Today, the spiritual guru of the all-powerful Russian President Vladimir Putin is a gentleman known as Patriarch Kirill. He's the archbishop of the Patriarch of Moscow, and he heads the Russian Orthodox Church. Patriarch Kirill is Putin's spiritual guru, but they're also lockstep in politics. As Patriarch, Kirill has said that Putin's rule is a miracle. Putin often turns to him for advice, not just on matters of spirituality, but also politics. In fact, both Putin and Kirill share the same worldview, that of restoring Russia back to its imperial glory. On Crux Decode this week, who is Patriarch Kirill? What is his association with Vladimir Putin? And why does he have an outsized influence on the Kremlin? The association between Putin and Kirill started in 2012, when Kirill openly supported Putin's presidential bid in 2012 when he was running for a third term. At that time, Kirill said that Putin was correcting the historically wrong path that Russia took after coming to power. Kirill also conducted a special prayer ceremony in honor of Putin's re-election. He did that twice, first in 2012 and then subsequently in 2018. Kirill has also declared that the Russian Orthodox Church was unhappy with the existence of the non-citizenship and the lack of recognition of the Russian language in many countries neighboring Russia, including former Baltic states like Latvia. He said that Latvia must recognize Russian so that Russia would treat Latvia better. Now, you can imagine how that statement went down in the Latvian quarters. This statement was made by Patriarch Kirill after 2012. There was a constitutional referendum in Latvia on this very same question. Latvians were asked whether or not to adopt Russian as a second official language. And guess what happened in that referendum? More than 3/4 of Latvians voted against making Russian an official second language. That's not all. In 2018, during Kirill's visit to Bulgaria, in honor of the 140th anniversary of Bulgaria's liberation from the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria's then president, Rumen Radev, thanked all the ethnicities who struggled for Bulgaria's independence from the Ottoman Empire as part of Russia's imperial army. So he thanked the Russians, Romanians, Finns, Ukrainians, Belarusians. He went on and on. In response, Patriarch Kirill criticized the then president, and he said that Bulgarians should only thank Russia, not anybody else, and that there was no place for false interpretations of history. Kirill has a very checkered record of making controversial statements. Back in 2015, for example, Kirill's envoy delivered a personal letter to Russian servicemen who were at the Khmeim air base in Syria. A letter that claimed the Russian troops in Syria are there to deliver love and peace. Kirill also said that Russia's actions in Syria are noble and just. But Kirill has also had to face a raft of allegations, particularly massive corruption allegations domestically in Russia. He reportedly abused the privilege of import of duty-free cigarettes, something that was granted to the church back in the mid-1990s. At one point of time, Kirill was dubbed the Tobacco Metropolitan. Kirill was alleged to have profiteered up to $1.5 billion in this cigarette scam. Kirill never publicly acknowledged his wrongdoing. In 2012, 3 female members of the feminist group Pussy Riot were arrested for performing a song in the Christ the Savior Cathedral in Moscow. In that song, they called on the Virgin Mary to chase Putin out. The 3 girls were arrested for hooliganism. They were later sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. It outraged the entire liberal world. But Kirill at that time said that Pussy Riot were doing the work of Satan and they should be punished. Kirill also has a pet peeve against same-sex marriage. He's repeatedly lashed out at gays and lesbians as pagans. But Putin and Kirill's relationship could have begun much earlier, before Putin became president and Kirill became patriarch. In fact, the magazine Forbes reported back in 2009 that Kirill had previously worked as a KGB agent. That, of course, was also Putin's claim to fame. Now, in that article, Forbes goes on to claim that Kirill was more than just an informer, that he was an active officer of the spy agency, and just like Putin was, given their age gap, it is likely that Kirill was Putin's senior in the spy agency, the KGB. Patriarch Kirill has approved the Russian special military operation in Ukraine. He too, just like Putin, views Ukraine in a derogatory fashion. He views Ukraine as part of Russia, not as a separate country. He doesn't think Ukraine or Ukrainians deserve to be a separate nation. He believes, just like Putin does, in the idea of a transnational Russian civilization. They call it Holy Russia or Holy Rus, which includes Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and sometimes even countries like Moldova. It is basically a collection of ethnic Russians and Russian-speaking people throughout the entire world. Patriarch Kirill has long perpetuated a version of history which insists that many countries which made up the former Soviet Union are one people with a common religious origin. Now, what is that origin? It goes back all the way to the 10th century, when Prince Vladimir I in Kiev, also known as Saint Vladimir, converted to Christianity. Now, the legend goes that King Vladimir, after having conquered the Kiev Rus, which was headquartered in Kiev in Ukraine, wanted to decide which religion to take up. He apparently went to the Byzantine Empire in Turkey. He watched a sermon at the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, and he was so impressed that he decided to convert his entire kingdom to Christianity. He came back to Kiev and converted his entire subjects. That is believed to be the origin or the start of Christianity in the Russian heartland, which is why both Putin and Kirill view Kiev as the spiritual heart of Russia. Moscow may be the political capital, but Kiev is the spiritual heart. And that explains why they are going to such great lengths to annex Ukraine.